I'm sort of a digital native, but I'm old enough to have some memory of a world before the digital age. And as much as I love digital music, it's the best. It is. Don't let anybody tell you differently. But good old-fashioned records, they have some kind of magic about them, and I'd like to share that with you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of my favorite records, and also some neat ones that I found just randomly in antique stores and going through the bins at old used record stores and stuff like that. So the first one I wanted to show you, this record actually just came out. This is a new record by one of my favorite artists called Thievery Corporation. Thievery Corporation, it's two guys. They're these producers, composers, mixers. They take music from all over the world and mix different musical cultures in a kind of modern, almost hip-hoppy way. They're sort of the progenitors of this genre of music that's sometimes called trip-hop. Like trip, like trippy, and hop, like hip-hop, but if truth be told, it's more trip than hop. It doesn't really sound at all like hip-hop, although you do see like some kind of beats. This is the latest one called The Temple of I and I. It just came out on February 10th. It's a double album. Why? Why do I love vinyl? Well, look at this. This is because it's about more than music. Vinyl will never be as good as a CD or as a high quality digital download. It just won't be. But can you proudly display an MP3 file in your house where you can see it and admire the artwork and the creativity that went into it? Now, this album features some, I guess, sort of maybe retro Brooklyn or maybe retro Kingston kind of look, dancehall sort of look. Every single Thievery Corporation album has a completely different theme. They're all very different from one another. This one is inspired mostly by a kind of reggae, but I don't really like reggae that much because I find it kind of, well, it's just sort of hard to pay attention to. It's just, there's not a lot going on. It's a little distended. This remains coherent and musical and cosmopolitan. You can open it up and there's more artwork to enjoy. Probably the most important thing we've lost since we've gone to full digital is the cover art. We don't really even see it anymore, or maybe it's just a small little image appearing at the corner of our music player or something like that. But this is really spectacular. It's a piece of art. I paid about $25 for this album. Worth every penny. Saudade. I think I pronounced that right. Maybe if somebody can speak Portuguese, they can maybe correct my pronunciation on that. This album is influenced heavily by the sounds of Brazil, some bossa nova influences, which is sort of like Brazilian jazz, but it's still hip-hoppy and modern, and every single song on it has a unique signature, beautiful and melodic. Okay, this is the last of the Free Corporation album I'm going to show you because it's the last one I own on vinyl, although I think I have almost all of them digital. This one is called The Cosmic Game. It's more traditional trip hop, very spacey, very trippy, but still coherent and tight. It's not like just listening to some kind of stony progressive music. It's tight and listenable, elegant, kind of a classiness about it. Has all the lyrics. I can sit and read the lyrics and admire the art when I listen to the music, and it's almost like I'm listening in, like 3 dimensions, right? I mean, I hear the music, and then I also get to enjoy this visual experience that the artist designed to be evocative and synergistic with the music. This was the first new album that I ever bought. It's Dummy by Portishead. Portishead is I think mostly 90s trip hop group, also very kind of seminal in that genre. Beautiful vocals, deep bass, but slow, chill. This is the kind of music that you might listen to when you're just relaxing at the end of the day, or maybe if you're having like kind of a chill kick back or get together with your friends and you want some music in the background that's really gonna set the right mood, but at the same time not really interfere with your conversation. I would totally go for something like Portishead. Oh, if only I had some more Chiba to show you, that would also be an excellent recommendation. This is Saint Germain, their album called Tourist. Saint Germain is, how would you describe this? It's jazz, but modern. Sometimes they call it kind of acid jazz because there is some electronic instruments in here, some electronic rhythms, beats, so it's kind of like jazz, kind of lounge jazz mixed with maybe some down-tempo electronica. It has the beats of some down-tempo electronica, but matched with some beautiful brass wind instruments and string instruments. This is one of my newest albums. I just got it. I actually got it at the same time that I got the new Thievery Corporation album. It's by a group called Pink Martini. The album is titled Hang On Little Tomato. Here's got this guy here throwing a child up in the air and catching him. significance of that, but lots of pictures of the musicians. They're a very interesting act. If you were to listen to this, it would be very difficult to describe. It sounds kind of maybe like some classic pop, but also sort of lounge jazz, very retro, like 1960s retro, but it's almost like trip hop, except there are no electronic instruments at all. It's just real live strings and brass and the most beautiful female vocals. If Thievery Corporation was played orchestrally, it might sound something like Pink Martini. Very international. There's on every album, this one, there's songs that they sing that sounds like, classic pop from France and Italy and Portugal and Spain and even Japan. But it's still somehow modern at the same time. It's, I think, one of the most incredible musical acts going on right now. You should totally check it out. The music it's so hard to describe. I would describe this sound as, like, imagine that you are walking into a black tie and gown ball in New York City with crystal chandeliers and everybody with fancy coats and tails and top hats, and you're walking into the party and you grab a glass of champagne off of the waiter's tray, and as you do so, you turn and you look and you see the most beautiful, breathtaking, sexy bombshell in a red dress is the center of attention, and she looks over at you. That's what this album sounds like, is what that image feels like. I have Michael Jackson's Thriller. Look, if you're gonna get into vinyl, you gotta get the best-selling record of all time. I mean, look at this. Would you look at that? That is MJ in all of his glory with a tiger cub. What more do I need to say? Full spread, MJ, tiger cub. Best-selling album of all time. Just had to have it. Okay. This is the White Stripes. I don't just listen to trip hop. I have pretty eclectic taste. This is something. It took me a long time to get into the White Stripes. I don't think I really gave them the proper chance. For a lot of years, I was just, I wanted everything to be so furious, so intense, and really only recently I think I've started to enjoy the less aggressive kind of White Stripes pretty much any time. You can have it on during the day, you can have it on at night, you can have it on during a party. It took me way too long to get into the White Stripes. This is one of the breakout albums of the Black Keys. It's not their first album. I think maybe it's like their second or third from like 2003 or something. Thick Freakness. Black Keys is that's definitely another group that took me way too long to get into. Very bluesy, more bluesy than White Stripes, I think. Maybe less hard. Garage soundy, grungy, thick, as the album title suggests. Alright, but still richly satisfying as somebody who likes heavy music. I like music. I don't like music that just, babies me, toys with me, and just tries to I like music that makes me feel, that gets into me, that gets under my skin, and this does it. Very bluesy, but kind of blues rock. Okay, now we're gonna get into some of the older stuff. There are good reasons to get into vinyl, and there are bad reasons to get into vinyl. A bad reason is that you think like it's gonna be some magical sound. They do have a distinctive sound, and I don't think it's accurate to really say that they sound bad, or just as it's not accurate to say they sound better than a CD. I mean, from a technical standpoint, they don't. But to the degree that people like the sound of vinyl, it's more because of the imperfections rather than its perfection. CDs are perfect. The record, the high notes are rolled off, and the bass is kind of rolled off a little bit. It's mid-rangey, and it gives it a kind of warmth. It's very comfortable. Alright, that's the good reasons for getting into vinyl is going to record stores. I love doing this, especially when, I don't have anything to do, and sometimes it's hard to find things to do by yourself, and we just end up sitting around at home playing on the internet or looking at our phones or whatever, and I think it's important for people to have things that they can do by themselves. I can go to a record store, and I bring my headphones and my phone, and I look through the records, and I'll listen to whatever it is on Spotify, so I can decide if I like it or not. And I can spend an hour or two just going to the record stores, and sometimes you find something like this, Bill Withers' Greatest Hits. Gotta listen to Bill Withers. Some songs you probably know, like Just the Two of Us, and Ain't No Sunshine. Ain't no sunshine when she's away. Beautiful album cover. You can think about it and try to figure out, be the forensic investigator here. What do we got here? We had a bottle of some fine whiskey. We got an open bottle of champagne, a rose, some chocolate, and espresso. Oh, some high heels that have been kicked off, and a shrimp, and some fish eggs. Nothing spells sexiness like $2 at a antique store, just rummaging through the bins. Have you seen the original Cosmos? Maybe you've seen the more recent remake with Neil deGrasse Tyson, which was also quite good, but for me, nothing will ever replace the almost spiritual experience that me and I think so many others had with the original Cosmos series. If you can find an opportunity to watch it, I would totally recommend it. Look at this. It tells the story of each song corresponds to one part of the science documentary, and it tells you about, gives you some details about that particular discovery, that particular scientific idea that they discussed when this music was played. Actually, this record is a little damaged, but that's okay. With a CD, that's unacceptable to have a little bit of damage, but with a record, I think this record's older than I am. With a record, that's okay, because look what I have. even if it's oh, got a little scratch on it. This is another one of my favorite albums, and I also got it at a thrift store. It's Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings playing together. I don't consider myself to be a country music fan, but I do like some classic Western music. I really like Willie Nelson. Sometimes I like to go to sleep listening to Willie Nelson because I just find his voice is so relaxing and peaceful. He'd probably be very good at ASMR. And Waylon Jennings is kind of just deep, buttery voice. And this album is great. It plays a lot of their most famous songs with it, and they sing together. You probably can't see it, but it's textured like leather, a bit like the design on a saddle. I love the American West a lot. I live out here, and again, even though I'm not really a country music fan, there's a lot of beauty and a lot of poetry in some of this old classic Western music. It's another good find. Oh my gosh, this album is ancient. And I still have the tag on it. I paid $3.50. I don't even want to speculate. 1962. It was recorded in 1957 and pressed in 1962. It's a compilation of some bossa nova, Brazilian jazz. It's a very distinct sound. If you like jazz at all, even if you don't like jazz, you might like bossa nova. It's, I think, less, I don't know, for me, jazz can sometimes be a bit hard to follow, a bit just random, and I can't really follow it. I don't have that problem with this style of jazz, which I believe it came from Rio. I also got into that because Thievery Corporation has a lot of bossa nova influences, and you know I love them. Okay, this is the last album that I will show you. This is actually the first record that I ever owned, and nobody ever forgets their first record, which is sort of interesting, right? I don't first MP3 was. I'm not even sure if I could tell you what my first CD was, but just about anybody who collects vinyl can tell you what their first record was. This is, well, I sort of saved it for last. It's kind of interesting. This is also a very old one. It's a very old record, but it's just Sounds of a Storm, right? Before it was cool, before people had ASMR on YouTube and go to sleep listening to their iPhone with their earbuds. We had Echoes of the Storm, and actually it's a pretty tempestuous storm, so I'm not sure I can sleep very well to it, but it is nice to sit and listen to. I don't know, it's a piece of ASMR history. So, final, I'm going to show you a record. I don't ordinarily touch my records, but I want to show you guys how cool it is. Plus, I don't really like this record. And I bought it for the cover. I literally bought this album because I just like the cover, and I knew I don't even like the music. Look how big it is. It's a thing. It's real. It's made out of stuff. It's textured. What's so interesting is that if you look at it in the light just right, you can actually see your music. When it's recorded in analog, that the waveform is physically pressed onto the record, onto the vinyl surface. Really old-fashioned record players weren't even electronic. They would have a hand crank, right? And you'd put the record in just the sort of stored energy in a spring or something would turn the record, and a little needle would move along the grooves, kind of dancing back and forth, vibrating with the little grooves, with the little waves inside the grooves that are a direct capture of the sonic waveform itself. And it moves, and then it goes into sort of a horn-shaped flute, right? Sort of a flute that gets louder and goes in back, comes up into one of those big flowery phonograph, old-timey looking things, right? Which just sort of makes it sound louder, but the needle moving through those grooves is actually what makes the sound. It's incredible. Sometimes when I put a record on to listen to, I might start playing the record before I turn on my amplifier, my stereo. So I shouldn't be able to hear anything, but you actually can. You can actually hear, if you put your ear close to the record player, you can actually hear your music, even though just the sound coming off of the needle in the record itself, not out of a speaker or anything. It's actually quite remarkable. So, who should start collecting records? Well, people who love music, people who want to listen to their music in a way that's more of an experience. You have maybe a playlist on your iTunes, or a big file folder full of MP3s, or a Spotify station that you just hit and start playing stuff on Spotify randomly. Yeah, of course, that music sounds great, right? Digital music sounds so good, so perfect. But when you listen to a record, see it, or maybe I'll sit down with it. Then I need to decide what side to play. I drop it down on the record player, and I have to start spinning it, and I set the needle down where I want it to play, usually on the outside, but I can choose which song. And then I sit down and I enjoy 4 or 5 songs, and then it's time to flip, and you go up and you flip it, you do it all again. Now it seems like such a pain, right? And yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes I just want to listen to music while I kind of drift off to sleep. And, I just use my digital music when I want to do that, but sometimes, if I have guests over, or if I just want to have a more relaxing evening with I put little plastic things in here to help keep them safe. I'll do that later. If I just want to sit and have a relaxing evening and listen to something special and really take my time listening to the music, really appreciate it in a personal way, it's kind of like sitting down with a lover or a close friend when it's not just about getting the job done. You take your time and go slowly, and it's so tactile. There's things to touch, and there's texture, and there's, you don't just hit play and forget and get preoccupied doing something else, because every 15-20 minutes you have to go flip the record or select another record. It's a much more involved experience. Plus, if you're having a party, it's awesome. People love it. People like seeing it. People like flipping through your collection, and they see something that they like too, and they love to tell you about it and admire this thing that you have. And what makes vinyl better, or I don't want to say better, I don't think it's better, but what makes it different in a way that really does give it a kind of magic and a place in the collection of a music lover today, is because it's real. It's much more interactive. It's flawed in wonderful ways. Right? The people we love are typically flawed in wonderful ways. We don't remember perfect people. We remember good people who had flaws. We come to love those flaws for some reason. I guess that's just human psychology. These are the reasons why vinyl can be wonderful. It's a different experience with music. Sometimes that's exactly what I'm looking for. Alright, well, that's some of my favorite records. If you are interested in any questions, if you have any questions about starting a vinyl collection,